Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started with a song. This is a song written for the Poor People's Campaign, and it's called There's a Moral Revolution, and I'm going to teach it to us, and I'm going to invite you to sing along with me. I'll point at you when it's your turn, even though we're all muted. I can still see you singing. I can still see you moving around. Feel free to snap like this or clap like this and kind of help me keep the beat, and we'll get started. I love this song because it's all about a Poor People's Campaign. It's all about the major pillars, and it's a great way to ground us in the movement. And this is kind of the beat. So to help me get started, I invite you to snap along with me. All right. There's a poor people's campaign going on, going on. There's a poor people's campaign going on. Your turn. There's a poor people's campaign going on, going on. There's a poor people's campaign going on. Put your ears to the ground, feel the power moving around. There's a Poor People's Campaign going on. Try that. Put your ear to the ground, feel the power moving around. There's a Poor People's Campaign going on. Next we'll do racial justice. Okay, ready? There's a racial justice movement going on, going on. There's a racial justice movement going on. Your turn. There's a racial justice movement going on, going on. There's a racial justice movement going on. I hope you're singing. Put your ear to the ground. Feel the power moving around. There's a racial justice movement going on. Next, we're going to do eco-justice. Ready? There's an eco-justice movement going on, going on. There's an eco-justice movement going on. Put your ear to the ground. Feel the power moving around. There's an eco-justice movement going on. Peace and justice. There's a peace and justice movement going on, going on. There's a peace and justice movement going on. Yeah, your turn. There's a peace and justice movement going on, going on. There's a peace and justice movement going on. Put your ear to the ground. Feel the power moving around. There's a peace and justice movement going on. Our last one, moral revolution. There's a moral revolution going on, going on. There's a moral revolution going on. Your turn. There's a moral revolution going on, going on. There's a moral revolution going on. Listen up. We will do much more than parade. We will fight for it every day. There's a moral revolution going on. Let's go back to Poor People's. There's a Poor People's Campaign going on, going on. There's a Poor People's Campaign going on. Put your ears to the ground, feel the power moving around. There's a Poor People's Campaign going on, yeah. We will do much more than parade. We will fight for it every day. There's a Poor People's Campaign going on. Thank you. Everybody give yourselves a round of applause. Nice work.
That was wonderful, Maura. Thank you so much. I'm Rabbi Ilana Soskin, one of the co-chairs of the Maryland Poor People's Campaign. I wanted to welcome everybody here tonight. I'm super excited to see everybody. And so I'm just going to start by going through tonight's agenda very quickly and what our expectations are, which are minor. And then I'm going to pass it to our other co-chair, Reverend Angela, who is, as I said, the other co-chair. And she will talk about who's in the room and a few other things. So first, I just wanted to say we opened with Maura, who was so wonderful. We're going to jump right after this to the opening to give you some context. Reverend Janelle Bruce, who is a member of our Poor People's Campaign and who's been on the legal team and who's just an amazing person, and in so many ways, she's going to give us context about what we're doing here tonight. And then we're going to move through to one of our policy working group people who is going to give us facts about poverty here in the state. And then Reverend Dana Edwards is going to give us moral witness about honoring the courageous speakers who are going to be speaking tonight and giving testimony. And of course, from there, we're going to move into the testimony with an introduction from Lynn Elfall in the Baltimore region. And then we're going to go through several state testifiers from the different regions of our state. We're going to do a little bit more singing. And then we're going to come back, do more testifying, finish up with a litany with moral witnessing of what's going on here in the state. And then the policy group is going to come back again, give us a poverty resolution presentation that we're working on right now, and we hope to present very soon. There will be a call to action, and then we're going to close up at around 8:30. So that's basically our agenda for the evening. I know that was a really, really fast run through, but I don't want to waste anybody's time. The only other thing I wanted to add is the expectations for tonight, which is we've invited some legislators here, and they are here to listen. And the testifiers, we are here to speak. We want the voices of the impacted people to be the ones that are the focus tonight. And so we are asking to make sure that, you know, the impacted people have the center. And that's really what our expectation is tonight. We want the voice of those who usually do not have a voice to make sure to be heard tonight. And now I'm going to hand it over to Reverend Angela Martin to give us a little run through of who's in the room.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the field hearing. Once again, we want to welcome you. If this is your first Poor People's Campaign meeting, we encourage you to join the Poor People's Campaign. Go to www.poorpeoplescampaign.org and join there to be able to be a part of this movement. We are a new and powerful force that's going to be reclaiming our voices. So what is expected tonight, Alana's already mentioned, but moreover, who is in the room? We are one band, one sound, all across this nation. Poor People's Campaigns are in existence, but here in Maryland, we're made up specifically of our 8 various regions, and we've grouped ourselves kind of geographically by region, by the Western region, which is all of those states, all of those counties that are from Frederick on over. We've got our central region, which is Montgomery County, or which is Howard County and Anne Arundel County. We've got our Baltimore region, which is comprised of Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and Harford County. Then we've also got persons who are from Prince George's County, from Montgomery County, as well as the southern region, which is Calvert, St. Charles, and St. Mary's County. Then we've also got our big, beautiful Eastern Shore, which is comprised of 2 parts of our Eastern Shore, the lower shore and the upper shore. If you are in the room, I just kind of want you to do one of the little thumbs up or hands or wave, just to acknowledge that you're in the room. Tonight, we're going to be hearing persons representing our regions, and we hope that your voice will be represented in that too. All roads are going to lead toward our huge movement march. That's going to be a moral march on Washington, June 18th, 2022. If you haven't bookmarked that date, I suggest you pull out a pen and paper and bookmark that date right now. June 18th, 2022, all roads lead there. So tonight is our field hearing. We're going to give voice to our voiceless and allow them to speak. So Reverend Janelle Bruce, who's one of our organizers, Reverend Janelle, will you come on and tell everybody a little bit more about what a field hearing is involved in?
Absolutely. My name is Reverend Janelle, and I use she, her. I'm a part of the Maryland Poor People's Campaign because my life, my son's life, and the lives of all that I love are at stake. We are literally dying, y'all, every minute of every day, and it does not have to be this way. I'm part of the Maryland campaign because I believe in lifting up the voices and the power of the people. And that's why we're here tonight for the Maryland Poor People's Campaign field hearing. So what is the field hearing? I'm glad you asked. The Maryland Poor People's Campaign field hearing is an annual statewide event where poor and impacted leaders, faith leaders, and other moral actors in the Maryland Poor People's Campaign testify and bear witness to the evils of systemic racism, systemic poverty, militarism, and the ecological devastation across our state, which we are seeing across our nation. Through personal testimony, the field hearing centers the plight, the fight, and the insight of those most impacted by the evils to expose the lie of scarcity. There is no scarcity. There is plenty to go around in our nation if those with it would stop hoarding the wealth. The lie that we are alone in our pain, the lie that we are to blame for our poverty, and the lie that we cannot unite across differences to build a transformative movement in Maryland and across the country. We can build. The power of testimony didn't begin with us, but dates back to our ancestors, such as Frederick Douglass, who was an abolitionist and a writer. His words not only were presented with power, but they were powerful enough to shake the nation and powerful enough to indict those who were perpetuating evil. Or maybe you're familiar with Johnny Tillman, the first chair and president of the National Welfare Rights Organization, who used her voice to speak truth to power and to organize the people. Even after Tillman went off of welfare, she remained committed to welfare rights and speaking out because she knew and understood the power of testimony. Or maybe you're more familiar with Peggy Terry of Chicago's Join Community Union, who used her position as the editor of The Firing Lane to speak truth to power on the steering committee and was even on the steering committee for the 1968 Poor People's Campaign. Tonight, we don't just hear sad stories. If you have a moral conscience, you will be moved by the stories you hear. But we're here to speak truth. We're here to hear truth. We speak and own our truths, and we walk in the collective power that we have. So together, our personal stories will shatter the myths of scarcity. And we called on elected officials to attend, not to speak, but to listen. Listen to the evil that they have legislated. Listen to the immoral treatment of constituents, and at an even deeper level, the immoral treatment of our fellow human beings. This is not a mere town hall. This is a field hearing. And hearing is defined as any proceeding before a judge or other qualified hearing officer without a jury, in which evidence and argument is presented to determine some issue of fact or both issues of fact and law. And though we don't have a judge present, we have qualified Maryland hearing officers who can determine the issues and facts because it is our lived experience. This is the people's movement. And though in the spirit of Ella Baker, oppressed people, whatever their level of formal education, have the ability to fully understand and interpret the world around them, to see the world for what it is, and to move to transform it. Our people are suffering, but we are not powerless. Our people are dying, but we are not powerless. This hearing is about telling it like it is and moving to transform what is into what can be, what should be. We have people power and we have demands. So tonight we call on ourselves and all who are watching to mobilize and organize towards the mass poor people and low-wage workers assembly and moral march on Washington on June 18, 2022. We call on Maryland legislators and those across the nation to move and to act in the interest of the poor and low-wealth people in Maryland. We call on our legislators to move and act on behalf of the 140 million poor and low-wealth people in this country, not the wealthy few. This field hearing will remind us that we can't stop and we won't stop, but we will go forward together and not one step back. And now I'd like to pass it over to Abby from our Maryland Policy Working Group.
Thank you so much. I'm Abby Conrad, and I'm on the working group for the Maryland Poor People's Campaign. And I want to start by going through some facts about poverty in Maryland. It's important that we understand the scale and the scope of the problem when we're thinking about poverty, and that we don't see it as a one-off issue or something that only affects some groups in Maryland, but really recognize how pervasive and systemic the issue is. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, there were 39% or 2.3 million people in Maryland who were poor and low income. And we know that that problem has only gotten worse during the pandemic. And this figure is based on a more accurate measure called the supplemental poverty measure, which rather than the official poverty measure, it looks at other costs beyond just food. So it tries to look at all of the necessities that you really need to live. And with that figure, it's 2.3 million people in Maryland or more who can't meet their basic needs. And poverty in Maryland really affects all groups in the state. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's gotten worse, and it will probably continue to get worse and upend the economic lives and safety of poor people and working families in our state. Poverty affects hundreds of thousands of Marylanders across different gender, racial, and ethnic groups. It's not a problem that only affects one group or people in one part of our state. And while it does affect all groups, in absolute numbers, the highest number of poor people are white. It disproportionately affects people of color. So if we look at the rates of poverty within those groups, it's higher. So 16% of Native Americans in Maryland live in poverty, as do nearly 13% of Black residents and nearly 12% of Latinx residents, in comparison to 6% of white Marylanders who are poor. And beyond just being in poverty, deep poverty creates suffering across Maryland. Deep poverty is defined as those that live 50% below the official poverty line. So that means $6,000 per year for an individual. And this affects people across the state, but particularly in rural areas. Some of our rural counties are where we have the highest rates of deep poverty in the state. And while Maryland has recently increased the minimum wage, even with that increase to $11.75 an hour, it's still not enough to make a living wage. Someone who's working full-time at that wage only makes 43% of the income needed to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Maryland. So we know that that's not enough. And without living wages, housing is obviously a problem, and that's continued to worsen during the pandemic. Maryland renters owe millions of dollars in back rent. Over 100,000 households are behind on rent, but only 7% of renters have actually received housing assistance. Despite all the federal funds that have been made available, those have not reached renters. And if we look at the longer term programs that have been available for housing vouchers in Maryland in 2020, the wait time was 3.5 years to get assistance. So we know that that's not enough. And we have to really understand all the interlocking issues and injustices that contribute to poverty and the systemic issues in our state. The incarceration rates in Maryland really affect Black Marylanders, including young people of color. In 2019, while only 29% of Maryland's population was Black, they make up 71% of our inmate population. So the incarceration rate of Blacks in Maryland is actually the highest in the entire country. We also lead the country in having the highest rate of incarceration for Black men aged 18 to 24, and we have the highest portion of Black youth sentenced to life without parole. So we know we need criminal justice reform. And other basic issues continue to be a problem as well. Food insecurity is an issue across the state, and particularly children are affected by being food insecure. Over 200,000 children before the pandemic were food insecure in Maryland. And in September, a staggering half of adults in our state who were living in households with children received food assistance in September of this year. Healthcare and access to health insurance and quality healthcare is a problem for low-income people in Maryland of all groups, but particularly Black Marylanders really face higher mortality rates. They have the highest mortality rates for 8 of the 10 top 10 causes of death in the state. And there are other disparities like with infant mortality. Black infants in Maryland are twice as likely to die as white infants, and the mortality rate for Black infants in the state is above the national average. And finally, immigrants in our state as well face really a multifaceted set of issues. Immigrants in the Maryland and DC area have higher rates of poverty than native-born residents, and they face a number of challenges due to their immigration status. Half of unauthorized immigrants in Maryland are uninsured, and there are at least 275,000 unauthorized immigrants. So them and all of their families live with that precariousness and stress. So thanks for listening. I hope these statistics help frame this conversation and highlight the importance of addressing poverty in Maryland and how widespread and systemic it really is. And now I will pass it to Reverend Dana Edwards from the Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all here this evening. It's good to be with so many people. It looks like we have 107 participants right now, 107 people who are part of this new and unsettling force that we are creating together, this moral fusion moment, this moral fusion movement that we are creating together, that we are all a part of, even as we are separated, to keep each other safe. So I invite you right now to find a place for a moment of reflection, for prayer, for meditation, whichever word works best for you, to, if you feel comfortable doing so, and if you're able to do so, to come on screen and put your hand up to the screen so that we can all feel connected and be connected together, to feel each other's energy together. And if you're off screen and you still want to put your hand up to the screen, you're more than welcome to do so. And I invite you to take a deep breath in, as deep as you can, and release. To settle into this moment, to be fully present in this moment as we are together, to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, or to soften your gaze if you feel more comfortable doing that, as we invite the spirit of many names, the spirit of no name and beyond name into our space together. Spirit of light, spirit of love, spirit of all that is holy, spirit that brings us together to create change, to create joy, to create life together. We invite you into this space. Help us to cast off the distorted moral narrative of individualism. Help us to cast off the idea that we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps individually. It's not going to happen. We know in spirit, we know that you know that when we lift from the bottom, everybody rises. We know that everybody has a right to live. We know that we are a new unsettling force, and we are powerful together. We are powerful because we can create change together as a moral fusion moment, a movement. And as we enter into this space, Spirit, we invite you to help our speakers speak from their heart. Help them to have the strength and courage to share what is on their heart, to share their story with us all. To share their story publicly is such an act of revolution. It is an act of defiance. It is an act of casting off that shame that they may be feeling, and that we are here to witness to them in a safe space. And we invite those who are elected officials to listen with an open heart, so that they may understand when they are playing a part in this distorted moral narrative, and that we are here to change it together. It is not immoral to be poor. It is immoral to see poverty and do nothing about it. To see people around you struggling and do nothing about it. That is immoral. And so, Spirit, we invite you into this space to keep us safe, to keep us whole as we come together to change the world. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen. Blessed be, and Ashe.
Thank you, Reverend Dana. It's beautiful. Greetings, everyone. I'm Linnell Fall from Maryland. I'm a proud member of the Poor People's Campaign. I'm here today because I just don't want to be impacted. I want to change the way I've been impacted. I contracted COVID-19 with pneumonia in January through February of 2020, when the CDC or public health coordinators, the president, no one was talking about it. No announcements were being made, but people were sick everywhere. Because I lost my job of 12 years, my health insurance, and my car. If I had paid leave, I could have paid for my my COBRA and my dental plan. Because the coverage that I have, I would have better care for the issues that I'm dealing with COVID, with my cells being attacked, and the type of care that I have to receive. It's just brutal. I couldn't wait until the unemployment kicked in, because there was all kinds of chaos going on in Baltimore, and then it was a very dysfunctional system at that time. So by September of 2020, I had exhausted all of my savings, and I had to apply for Social Security. And let me tell you, that is not enough. My housing, health, and recovery was incomprehensible. I'm an African-American woman, retired, I'm a senior citizen, I'm single, and I'm raising my grandchild, living in a corrupt and disenfranchised system. I want to change the way I've been impacted. I've told my story to Reverend Barber, Maryland Poor People's Campaign, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and recently I was able to speak to Senator Bernie Sanders himself right in Washington, D.C. in his office. So many times we hear we have to pull ourselves up from the bootstraps. What's that? Or okay, get a good education, go get a job, and work really, really hard. Hustle, grind, do whatever you have to do to survive. But what happens when things go wrong? Your stories, our testimonies are powerful and important, because people give up on their power by thinking they don't have any. And it's not true. You have the power. Our stories have ignited a movement all across the United States of America and the world. Poor and low-income people voted by record numbers. These stories are being heard everywhere. That's why they are fighting to make sure to try to keep the Voting Rights Act out, to not pass the filibuster. This train is moving by those who want to change the way they've been impacted, to give voice to their experiences all across Maryland. Let's honor them today, because it is not easy lifting your voice against injustice and telling these stories. It's okay to raise your voices against something that's wrong. I want to thank you. We will now listen to Eileen Hepler from our Western region.
Good evening. I am a single mother of 2 daughters who are currently in college. I raised them primarily on my own, and I can attest that the system is set up to prevent people from escaping poverty, which is why inspirational stories are such a rare and exciting thing. For the last 15 years, I have lived in what is referred to as the Alice bracket, which means asset limited, income constrained, employed. This comprises a household with incomes above the federal poverty level, but below the essential local and regional costs of living. In other words, I'm the working poor. For most of my adult life, I have not had consistent medical care. When the ACA was passed, I thought this would be the savings grace that I needed. I made $2,000 a year over the allowable limit for medical assistance. As part of my divorce decree, my daughter's father carried their insurance. The suggestion for 3 years in a row to bring down my healthcare costs and get me affordable healthcare was to remove my daughters from their father's health insurance and put them on my account. I would then qualify for free healthcare. My reply, year after year after year, why would I remove them from excellent healthcare to subpar Medicaid that doesn't treat the whole person, vision, dental, hearing, and wellness, unless there is a problem with the child? The United States does not value the healthcare and well-being of its people, period. There is a misconception about college, FAFSA, and Pell Grants. I'm one bracket above receiving assistance for school, so I pay as I go. And it's rare I have the extra cash. And you don't forget, you need to buy those non-refundable online books as well at your own expense. I have taken the BGE assessment tool multiple times to bring down our electric bill, and they suggest I talk to my landlord about sealing up my home and replacing the windows. My landlord defers to BGE. We do not run the heat in winter to save on the electric bill unless someone is sick, because the warm air leaks right out. It's a similar story with my internet connection, internet quality, and Comcast. There is no place more affordable than where I live, period. There is no dignity in living in conditions that are, you get what you pay for. I want to believe my landlord cares, but simply doesn't have the funds to update the property. And my rent increase, which usually comes in March, came early this year on December 1st. Another rent increase is coming in June, twice in 1 year, because it was not raised last year. The landlord has bills too. My most recent hurdle is that my car died. Last night, the federal government announced that the approval of raising interest rates because we have a strong economy. This has to be a joke. Who do you think is in a situation to buy a used car marked up at 25 to 40% on loan with an increased interest rate? It's not anyone speaking to you tonight. It's not a supply issue or inflation. It's price gouging of the poor to benefit the rich amidst a global pandemic, and it's deplorable. Shame on every politician. I am not alone. Through outreach with the Poor People's Campaign, I've met families who have no food, a person of color facing repeated gentrification, being moved from community to community by no fault of their own, a small business owner who lost everything and had to uproot his family and leave their community in Montgomery County to live in Carroll County and try and start over again with whatever he had that was left. I have met so many displaced people and more evictions than you can possibly imagine. And not very few have access to get that money. It is ridiculous. In the area, rents have as much as doubled. Healthcare is not affordable. Salaries are insufficient, and mental health is at an all-time high. The food banks are stressed. All of these things existed before the pandemic, which is still happening. Compounding the 100-year pandemic event where the poor are getting poorer and billionaires are using our sweat equity to launch tourism rockets for the rich into space. Politicians, your people are not thriving and we vote. What are you going to do to fix it? Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate that. And this stories just continue. I would now like to introduce to you Kiana Folk from Central Region.
Hello, my name's Kiana Folk. I work 2 jobs. Oh, sorry. Hello, my name's Kiana Folk. I work 2 jobs. I'm on the autism spectrum. Though I graduated, taught my class 2 years ago, and being 26, I'm still living with my parents while working at Amazon part-time. Throughout, the job search for me, an autistic person like myself, is overwhelming. With it, I found out recently being a numbers game, and based on the job descriptions I've been reading, 2 or so more years of experience for an entry-level job. Worse, I got scammed 2 months ago, which really set me back to being independent and led me to taking a second job at Walgreens. This, and still searching and still finding the whole experience just saying, feeling like I need more. Just more experience for, again, entry freaking level. This job does not do enough in providing support to people. I have doors, I have some form of career counseling, but you know, especially with, I found out is like, closest I get is keep applying, which, yeah, not much helpful. And I have been, at some points, been driven to tears of frustration, and I just feel like I'm falling behind in life. I get reminded a few times that I'm not the only one who's struggling, but that just reinforces how screwed up this society is. All this is why I joined the Poor People's Campaign and have been active in my community, so I could be around those who are fighting and demanding to fight against these injustices. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kiana. Go to school, get a good job. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. This is from Desmond Tutu. I would like now to introduce you to Miss Mary Ward from Baltimore region. Come on with it, Miss Mary. Woo!
Hello, my name is Mary Ward, and I live at 5906 Park Heights Avenue. Been here going on 4 years. When I came here, it was Blue Ocean. Well, I'm here on the Section 8. They put me on the 5th floor. I'm a woman of 71-year-old. I'm in a wheelchair because I can't walk. I have trouble with my balance. Okay, when I came here, they told me that everything was perfect. The elevators worked. They put the name downtown on the papers, everything was up to par. When I got here, they have 2 bathrooms, one in my room and the one in the hallway. Okay, I had not moved all my stuff in yet. So the next day, all my stuff was in. My wheelchair is too big to get into the bathroom in my room because it's very small. But I had a walker, so I made it over to look into the bathroom. And what I seen was horrible. The shower and stuff was so dirty and grimy and everything. So I went to try to clean it, and it wouldn't clean. The next day I woke up, I had round circles all over my body. I had put some kind of fungus or something. So I went to the doctor. The doctor wouldn't touch me. She stood back off me and said, I will give you and write you a prescription for some cream. She sent it to the pharmacy so I get much cream as I needed. I went down Section 8 and told them. They said, well, we're going to get in touch with them. They sent an inspector and whatnot. After that, nothing was done. So staying here on and on. The elevators broke down. I was put downstairs, had to stay all night long. I was wet. Couldn't get upstairs. The ambulance and fire department came. They had to power me up 5 flights of steps so I can get in. From that, 5 times they did that. The 5th time they said, we cannot do it again because you have heart trouble. Something have happened to you. We couldn't get you downstairs to the truck in time because there's no elevators. And we couldn't power you down in 5 flights of steps to get you to monitor my heart in time. Their supervisor said they couldn't do that anymore. Since Mount Washington took over, I have been crawling up and down 5 flights of steps. Sometimes I had to sit down because my heart started acting up again. My heart had been at AFib a couple of times. Now, I went back down and reported it. They want to give me a new voucher to move. But COVID is going on, and I put my name on different lists and whatnot. There's so much going on that people do not know. I'm not getting good health treatment. I'm not a VIP. I know it's a little too much of what's going on in the hospitals. They done put things out in the computer. They done wrote to doctor, different things because of some of the things I know that's not right. So they literally put a thing out, this and that. Well, nobody knows this. The people had not come forward with anything. I go to a doctor, they were showing me and whatnot. I said, well, this is bothering me, that's bothering me. They're passing me to another doctor. I went there to get my high blood pressure took. It was so high. They asked me, did I use cocaine? What are they talking about? They said, well, in the computer, you use cocaine. Somebody had put that in the computer. I said, well, I found out where it came from. It came from Johns Hopkins. It was an incident in Johns Hopkins in 2010. The nurse gave me and prescribed me the wrong type of medicine that I was allergic to. That was kept quiet. She said, you want to see a doctor? I got a doctor for you. She threatened me. This has been going on. Now, the apartment that I live in, place that I lived before, 607 Pennsylvania Avenue, I was living there with mold. I started coughing all over the place. People come in my apartment, they had a terrible cough. I had pictures of mold everywhere. I went to court with these people. They kept the judge from seeing the pictures. Said, oh, we don't need to see the pictures. But I have them. And I made so when it was all over with, the judge seen them. Okay, here I am still crawling up and down the steps right now. They got it working. They want their rent. How dignifies me paying them rent? I'm crawling up 5 flights of steps down a long hallway. Get in here, I take a pill because my heart is hurting and whatnot. I have not yet paid rent. I'm going to court. And I'm asking if we stay together, we will get something heard. We're going on Instagram. We're going to YouTube, because this has got to get out there. I have pictures, I have videos of what's been happening to me. Now, these people is doing these things. I showed the people the videos they rent space about Washington. They blew it off. You cannot talk to the manager. There's direct you to the maintenance people. What do the maintenance people got to do with an elevator? You'll never talk to the manager, ever. You invited the manager to come here and have talk with the people in the building. They won't do that. So I am here to suggest, when you do see these pictures and this video that has been taken by Michael and David, you'll see what I've been going through. Right now, I'm in the process of trying to get another place. There's a place being built on Park Heights. I had to get some kind of information, some more information they want. But my name is on the list in different places. But while COVID is going on, these people said they are not taking in nobody right now. So I'm stuck here. The elevator right now is jumping. It's getting ready to break down again. I don't have time to keep doctor's appointments because I can't get downstairs. I called mobility. Mobility said, well, we only wait 5 minutes. So these are the things that I'm going through. These are the things I've been going through. It's heavy. I appreciate y'all for hearing me, and I'll give it back to you right now. Thank you so much. Bye.
God bless you, Miss Mary. And when you go to that hearing, we will be there with you. Woo. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will now hear songs from the Movement Arts Group, our awesome, awesome music. Thank you.
Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Say it now. Say it loud. Say it clear. Everybody's got a right to breathe clean air. Everybody's got a right to drink clean water. Everybody's got a right to eat good food. Say it now. Say it loud. Say it clear. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Say it now. Say it loud. Say it clear. Everybody's got a right to a home. No one wants to be down out and alone. I wish there was a place that I could afford. Say it loud. Say it now. Say it clear. Now, it isn't that the working folks ain't working hard enough. It's just that rich folks have taken all the stuff. They built a system to keep them on top. From the bottom, we're saying that's gotta stop. Everybody, right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Say it now. Say it loud. Say it clear. We don't need wars and destruction. What we need is social reconstruction. Build a world where the children can thrive. Keep the planet and the people alive. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Say it now. Say it loud. Say it clear. Now Now when your days are done and your account comes due, there are some basic questions be asked of you. When I was cold, did you clothe to keep me warm? When I was hungry, did you share your corn? When I was homeless, did you shelter me from the storm? Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Say it now. Say it clear. Say it loud.
Absolutely. Everybody has a right to live. Wonderful. So we will now have Mike Hughes of the Western Union region.
Hi, my name is Mike Hughes. I live in Western Maryland with my wife, and I'm the proud parent of 4 children. My wife and I are both disabled. Though our disabilities are hidden, they affect every part of our lives. I have autism, my wife has heart failure, along with autoimmune disorders, which force her to live in chronic pain. I'm able to work, my wife is not. Because of my autism, I'm not able to work as quickly as my coworkers, and I live in a constant state of anxiety. It's harder for me to multitask or manage my time, and I get overwhelmed easily. So I've often been the first to be sent home when the work slows down. Before COVID, I used to work as a contractor in a big glass building. It would scare me to death just walking in there every day. Along the hallway, as I walked to the elevators, there were about 10 signs, each with a statement about the company's support for a different group. One of the signs read, "We support people with disabilities." That's the sign I'd have to walk by on my way out after being sent home with 8 hours for the week to feed my family. My wife, despite her chronic pain, had a long career as a respiratory therapist, but she'd been experiencing heart palpitations, basically a fluttering in her chest that made her feel dizzy and lightheaded. We went to a heart specialist to get her checked out. The doctor explained that the blood was sloshing around inside her heart instead of pumping like it's supposed to. That began a long process for my wife of accepting that she'd never be a respiratory therapist again, which led to her applying for disability benefits from Social Security. Despite her extremely serious condition, she was denied benefits again and again. We get a letter that said, "You have 2 working hands and 2 working feet." Who says that to someone with catastrophic heart failure? By that point, the medical bills were crushing us, even with our state insurance, and the only money coming in was from my job and the limited hours I was getting. During this time, we had to rely on her family to pay our bills. We didn't know how we were going to make it, and it felt like it was all our fault. We needed to get a lawyer, and then after another year, my wife finally won. Turns out that no one at Social Security really even looked at my wife's file until it went before a judge. We shouldn't have needed a lawyer, and it shouldn't have taken over 2 years. I know that our case is not unique. Our government stretches things out, so most people will have to give up. That cuts down on the number of paid claims. These are benefits that people have earned, that they are rightfully entitled to. That's why I joined the Poor People's Campaign. Poor People's Campaign believes that everybody deserves to be heard. Since then, I've learned that we're not alone, and it's not our fault, that we can learn to see each other and stand up for what's right. We have a right to live in a country where disabled people don't have to beg for their survival. We have a right to live in a country where we don't have to choose between feeding our kids and paying medical bills. We have a right to a future. We have a right to hope. We have a right to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate that. We will now hear from Ms. Enisha Miller, hailing from Montgomery County. Take it away, Enisha.
My name is Enisha Miller. I'm in Maryland. I'm poor, and I'm a person here in Montgomery County. Thank you for having me. I really need your support and understanding, and I'm honored to speak on behalf of disabled and the chosen people who help and love what they do. I'm a resident of District 5, and I'm testifying in support of the Build Back Better. I came to this county in 1999, and I have never stopped giving my time to get this right for the poor. Tell your neighbor to get this right. I am a low-wage earner. I work for United Community Supports of Maryland. I aid and assist adults with disabilities here in Maryland. To all the nonprofit housing developers, it's critical that we adopt housing initiatives that will educate, train, and employ workers of diverse backgrounds. And I challenge you to pay higher wages in 2022. How can we ignore the growing numbers of homeless people? I overcame homelessness because advocates said enough is enough. Black males in Maryland make up the majority of homeless residents. Take a stand today. I'm considered poor by this body of work. Our decision makers or politicians here in Montgomery County, Maryland, who fought for free transportation for residents, why? Because we can't afford transportation. We are asking for higher wages, accessible housing, and affordable housing. Low-wage earners can't afford the rents. We need reforms that address and understand we are dealing with discrimination in housing, in our educated system, in our workplace, and in the courts. Residents in Maryland simply can't afford utilities and food. I will not give up, not today and not tomorrow. Advocates have requested we ask for the support we need from others to welcome diverse income levels in housing and help us fight for our wages in Maryland. We believe this bill could strengthen our communities for daycare workers and families who need access to affordable care. It can address so many problems our county faces to improve economic equity in housing. The bill encourages the collaboration of community partners. People of diverse backgrounds can't get ahead due to economic circumstances. However, we recognize community stakeholders are ready to help us change this system, to fight for housing for me, fight for removing barriers for disabled like my son and my brother, fight for better living conditions. Maryland Poor People's Campaign is a watchful eye to rectify our county's housing policies. We ask more people to share your story, make the needed recommendations for our low-wage workers, disabled sisters and brothers. We need you to write and reach out to the Office of Legislative Oversight and move the discussion in human rights and for social justice. I feel good in this moment. So many of us aren't included when decisions are being made. We are here today in need and asking for supportive legislation that understands the needs of everyone, and additional legislation that will address low-wage wages, providing higher wages for personal support staff like myself, and so many hardworking low-wage earners who understand how important we are to families. Thank you.
Thank you, Enisha. We will now hear from Mr. Lydell Hills from the Baltimore region.
Thank you and hello. Appreciate all the legislators that were able to make it out today, and of course all the people that took their time out to come and hear everybody's stories. And so I just wanted to speak briefly about when the Poor People's Campaign invited me to come out and speak about some of the work that's gotten me involved in the campaign, and also how poverty has impacted my life. I had a lot of different things going on in my mind, but the main thing is that there are so many different people's stories that need to make it here today, and that I'm trying to represent through this work. And so in the work that I do, I'm a founder of Truth to Power Youth Program and a member of Organizing Black, a organization that educates folks on the ground level in the community how to do this kind of work. And essentially a lot of the things that got me involved with this is seeing basically young Black men in my life like not make it to essentially this point where I've made it through education. I've started in kindergarten and seen kids I've tutored in second grade or peers in middle school end up on suspect lists. And even in college, I've seen people who've gotten involved in some crime and like have not been able to finish. And all these essentially come back to poverty and the situations that people have been born into. And so, and the people that I represent here today and the stories that I hear about in Baltimore, as I've been working with some of the folks who experience homelessness out in this community, and coming out of the work of doing reentry, which has gotten me wanting to work on the school to prison pipeline and really address the issues that youth face as they're coming into the system and as they're coming into adulthood. There's many different services that the community needs to bring together to be able to service our youth. And some of the youth in my own program have experienced homelessness, and I've still been dealing with that pain, just thinking about what I've fallen short on, being able to provide for my youth. And even with all the connections and resources that I see around me that I've been able to garner through this, through the positions and things I've been in, I still haven't been able to serve those youth completely. And so that's like an acknowledgement of the fact that there are so many different resources in Baltimore City that are able to serve many different people, but we need to bring all these different services together to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks. And so I say this all to say that I hope that we can focus on more issues that bring together the different resources that folks need to a stronger network, a stronger community.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now go to our musicology department and we'll hear from Ms. Pauline Pisano.
Thank you, everyone. I am fired up. These testimonies have been so powerful, and I'm really thinking about the fight, plight, and insight. The insight that we are seeing from our community and building that network and speaking out against this criminalization of poverty. So I'm gonna drop some lyrics in the chat. This is a sing-along. The first part is a song I learned from the movement Costecha. And then we're gonna sing the song Courage that comes out of a South African anti-apartheid movement. If Not Now also sings this song as well. And we're gonna sing about how we are together. We are not alone. We are walking with one another with courage and with dignity and with justice and freedom. So this is a sing along, so please sing along with me. I know we have to stay on mute. It goes like this. Rise up, my people, my condors, my eagles. That's your part, here we go. Rise up, my people, my condors, my eagles. No human being will ever be illegal. No human being will ever be illegal. people, my condors, my eagles. No human being will ever be illegal. You got it, here we go. Rise up. We're rising up. Let's rise up. Courage, my friend. You do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. So this next part, we're gonna sing about justice. We're gonna sing about marching with one another with justice. We're singing about how we are organizing and building power. And on June 18th, the poor and dispossessed are gonna take action together. We are a new unsettling force in this nation's complacent life. And we are here and we are powerful. Let's sing about justice. Here we go. Justice, my friend, you do not cry alone, 'cause we will march with you and sing your spirit home. My eagles, no human being will ever be illegal. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza, la libertad es mi única bandera. Rise up, my people, my condors, my eagles. No human being will ever be illegal. Rise up, my people, my condors, my eagles. No human being will ever be illegal. Much love, family.
So powerful, so powerful. Thank you. That was so powerful. We have the best musicology in the world. Thank you for that. Thank you. Woo. Rise up, my people. No immigrant, no one is illegal. No one is illegal. Ooh. Okay. We will now hear another testimony from Miss Leah Kamenix.
So, hi everybody. Thank you for the time that you have put for this special time to listen to one another. My story is kind of long, but I'm just gonna summarize probably that. If I want to make it short, is that I have gone through a lot of difficulties in some ways related to disabilities, because I have fallen through the cracks. And so the poor gets criminalized, but also the people who have disabilities. And the reason is because people with disabilities, we are not good like defending ourselves. So it takes us many years to get hit in so many ways. And we realized we need to talk to somebody like an Asia to help us. So thank you for listening. So my story could be very long, but I want to summarize it. I was an immigrant. I could say refugee or immigrant in some ways, a mix of it. I started in Venezuela. There was a civil war. I left because I was an orphan, and I had a chance to study in Minnesota. But it wasn't rosy. It was also part of it was like human trafficking. So in some ways I was trafficked as a teenager, and the person ended up being having problems with alcoholism. Then I ended up getting beaten a lot, and then I had to ask the person to please, let me go. So I went through that, and I made it through that. And while that was happening, I went through college. I graduated from college, and I experienced a lot of poverty, homelessness. Sometimes I ate, sometimes I didn't eat. It was pretty hard, but I made it through by working pretty hard and trying to have different type of jobs that allowed me a place to sleep, a room while I was in college. I made it through college, and I also made it through, the economic devastation that some of us had to go through when the country had been in economic problems in the 80s, and also now during COVID. The most recent things that I have suffered is back to homelessness, isolation, some physical problems, disabilities, also include the physical disabilities, and I'm alone. So, and in some ways now I don't feel so alone, because when I see all of you, so it feels like I have a family. Also, when I have been to the marches, I don't feel so alone. But my background is a South American Indian, and so I'm part of those statistics that I was reading. We are about almost 70%, 16 to 70% of the poor in Montgomery, in this county in Maryland. So it is pretty hard. I can tell you, for somebody who's disabled and poor and orphan and alone, you get criminalized pretty easily, and you get unable to pay for housing, because it's hard to work full-time when you have different type of disabilities. It's pretty hard to work full-time, and so it's hard to pay for even just one studio. It's very difficult. The transportation is about $200 a month or more, and then food. So I ended up in different shelters, but when I was in the shelters in Montgomery County, also I ended up beaten down in the shelters. Ended up robbed in the shelters, and there was some kind of culture of almost like in jail inside the shelter, at least one shelter where I was. So again, that's also very difficult for a person with disabilities. I also have a post-traumatic stress disorder because I was tortured, and different things that it makes it really hard to survive in a shelter. It's really difficult for somebody like me. So anyway, the short story is that I really appreciate everybody, and Initial and Ashley and Mr. Hughes. I really empathize with you for your story. I have similar things that I have been facing, but I'm very thankful to all of you, and please help us with housing and to get the job, the people with disabilities need to get certain type of jobs. We are very capable. I'm very capable. I have a lot of academic background. I am very capable, but I just need the advocating for myself is not very easy. So I need that help. And I'm very, very thankful and appreciate all of you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Leah. We will now hear from Philomena Owona.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my students. My name is Philomena Owona. This is my 22nd year as an educator. I immigrated to the United States because of war in Liberia, one of the bloodiest civil wars ever in that region. But today I'm not here to talk about who really was behind those atrocities. Instead, I want to take you on a walk with me during my high school days. As a 15-year-old in high school, I rarely missed a day because school was where I got my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I remember the cafeteria worker who even packed food for me for the weekends. Long weekends and holidays were extremely traumatic for me because of my food insecurity. I remembered Mr. Griffith, who was determined that I would attend college. Ms. Haymont, who took me to museums and cultural centers, letting me know that I had so much to offer. I'm here standing on their shoulders, and today I'm lifting up my students to reach even higher. But my students face devastating systemic poverty and lack. Poverty is evil. It destroys possibilities. Poverty strips my students of equitable education and denies many children that basic human need. Public schools are nurseries of hope, and as such, every opportunity must be provided to sustain and provide and protect that hope by fully funding public education. When children come to school hungry because their parents are not well paid to provide food and meet the needs of their families, or when children don't come to school at all because they and their families have been evicted, that impacts everyone. The pandemic has exacerbated these impacts, causing academics delay, social and emotional delays. Students are struggling in so many ways. How will you purpose to change that? Knowing the stability schools provide for children should give elected officials courage to fight for what we are asking, such as access to affordable housing, food, community schools, trauma support resources, technology, broadband internet access to accommodate online learning, and so on. One cannot injure himself on the foot and expects to win a foot race. Government cannot deprive our children of fully funded public education and still expects them to be leaders in our communities and the world. I'll share with you a few stories. I turned on the television a couple of years ago and I saw one of my students and his family. They had recently become homeless and they were sponsored by an organization. I will tell you about teaching a lesson on natural on resources and water and things of that sort. When one of my students said, "I don't have any water." And I thought they meant maybe hot water because one of their siblings or someone had used up all the hot water in the house, but come to realize that they had no running water in their house. Water was cut. And as an educator, I had to turn that lesson around and move it away from that child because I didn't want him to be stigmatized. I'll tell you a story of me calling one of my students on my cell phone because she had no internet connection to join Zoom. But the class needed her participation and cared about her. I'll tell you a story about my student who's been crying because of anxiety, and one who cannot sleep because of nightmares and things of that sort. The stories are endless. So to our elected officials, we ask that you work to ensure that our school communities are surrounded by affordable, safe, and accessible housing. Our students have easy access to fresh and healthy food options, safe spaces for play and recreation, access to family-sustaining wage work with dignity, access to affordable healthcare, affordable and reliable public transportation, and comprehensive support for the many ways families are formed and care for students, especially immigrants, refugees, and multi-generational households, because these are things that we must have for our students in public schools to thrive. I thank you for hearing my voice. I hope in my story you can see children and know that they depend upon you to stand up for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Philomena, for sharing your powerful, powerful testimony. And thank you to all those others who have shared with us this evening from your heart, who have shared so many powerful testimonies, so many powerful voices. Now is an opportunity for you to be able to share with us and make your voice heard in a very powerful way from where you are. Rabbi Alana and I, the co-chairs of the Maryland Poor People's Campaign, are persons of faith, but our movement is not of one or any particular faith. We are of all faiths and embrace all faiths of many traditions. And so today we want to offer a kind of an ecumenical litany, if you will, and we invite you to share along. As we're sharing our screen, you're going to see the words, "Hear our prayer." Those are in green. That's for you to say. We'll share that now. God commands us to love one another. We promise to seek and serve all persons, loving our neighbors as ourselves, and to strive for justice and peace and respect the dignity of every human being.
Let us now honor those vows and pray for our nation in this election season, for wise and just leaders, and for the needs of others throughout our country and the world.
We pray for continued blessings on all peacemakers, on leaders who value peace, and on everyone who promotes nonviolent solutions to conflict. We pray for a speedy end to all violence and the warfare around the world.
God of peace and gentleness, hear our prayer.
We pray for the strength of heart and mind to look beyond ourselves and address the needs of our siblings throughout the world, for the rural and urban poor, for the rebuilding of our communities, and for an end to the violence, the cycles of violence that threaten our future.
God of generosity and compassion, hear our prayer.
We pray for all the nations, that they may live in unity, peace, and concord, and that all people may know justice and enjoy the perfect freedom that only God can give.
God of liberty and freedom, hear our prayer.
We pray that the Spirit living in each of us may embrace the most vulnerable members of our society. We pray also for an end to the growing disparity between the rich and the poor, and for the grace and courage to strive for economic justice.
God of all gifts and blessings, hear our prayer.
We pray for an end to prejudice throughout our country and the world, that we will respect all people as precious children of God, and that racism, sexism, and all other forms of discrimination will be forever banished from our hearts, our society, and our laws.
God of fellowship and equality, hear our prayer.
We pray for a reverence of creation, that we will have the tools and the will to conserve it, that we will use its bountiful resources in the service of others, and that we will become better stewards of all that has been entrusted to us.
God of nature and the universe, hear our prayer.
We pray for all immigrants, refugees, and pilgrims from around the world, that they may be welcomed in our midst and be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect.
God of outcasts and wanderers, hear our prayer.
We pray for the sick, the aged, and the infirm, for those with physical and mental disabilities, that all may have access to proper health care, and that God's loving embrace may be felt by all who suffer.
God of comfort and healing, hear our prayer.
We pray for all prisoners and captives, that a spirit of forgiveness may replace vengeance and retribution, and that we, with all the destitute, lonely, and oppressed, may be restored to the fullness of God's grace.
God of absolution and mercy, hear our prayer.
We pray for all children and families, and particularly for the orphaned, neglected, abused, and those who live in fear of violence or disease, that they may be relieved and protected.
God of children and families, hear our prayer.
We pray for the reconciliation of all people throughout the world, that we may be an instrument of your healing love.
God of outreach and restoration, hear our prayer.
We pray for all who have died as a result of violence, war, disease, or famine, especially those who died because of human blindness, neglect, or hardness of heart.
God of eternal life and resurrecting love, hear our prayer.
Almighty God, you have promised to hear what we ask. Watch over our country now and in the days ahead. Guide our leaders and all who will vote. Guide them in all knowledge and truth, and make your ways known among all people. In the passion of debate, give them a quiet spirit. In the complexities of the issues, give them a courageous heart.
Accept and fulfill our petitions, we pray, not as we ask in our ignorance, nor as we deserve in our sinfulness, but as you know and love us, hear our prayer. Amen. We now pass on to the policy group. Susan Allen is going to introduce the poverty resolution presentation. Thanks, Susan and the policy group, for putting this amazing piece of work together.
Well, hello, everyone. We just had our prayers tonight, But as Maura said at the beginning in our song, we will do more than pray, we'll take action every day. And we would like you to stick with us. Your voices are an unsettling force, and we need them as we move forward into our next action as the Maryland Poor People's Campaign. So Abby, could you show us what our next project is going to be? This is going to be a resolution to end poverty in America. Your voices, our voices, are going to guide our leaders in the Maryland General Assembly in 2022. We want to put pressure on them. We want to change the narrative so that poverty is really seen as the evil it is. It is shown in its depth and breadth across our whole state. We want our communities to recognize poverty inside them, and we want to end it. I want to go again, Philomena, thank you. You pointed out that poverty is evil. That's going to be our message. So the resolution to end poverty in Maryland, it's a document that we can share with our leaders and with ourselves. It's a moral agenda, and with the absolute statement that we are going to end poverty in all of its forms in our state, because as Reverend Janelle pointed out, we do not have scarcity in this state. We have the resources to end poverty, and we're going to hold our elected officials accountable. And I want to thank those officials who came tonight, who are people of goodwill and are going to stand by us in our campaign. So what we would like you to do is put our next meeting, Abby, if you can show us the date on the next slide. We are going to be meeting on January 17th, 2022 at 7 p.m. This is Martin Luther King's Day. And we are going to move forward together through looking at the End to Poverty resolution and to get your voices involved and come up with strategies for reaching Maryland, the MGA in 2022. So why do we need this resolution now? We are in the third Reconstruction for human dignity. As our great leader, Bishop William Barber and Reverend Dr. Thea Harris have told us that we have got to work for the dignity of all people across all of the issues that we've talked about tonight, not just a few issues, but many, but all elements of poverty, low wealth, the indignity sometimes with which we treat our working families. So we're going to put all of it together in the third Reconstruction for human dignity in our state. And Dr. Barber has said, we can never know the ecstasy of true hope without attending to the tragic realities of the poor and forgotten, and hope has got to be what we lift up right now. We personally, I really believe we can end poverty in this state. I believe we can do it. And that's the hope that we have got to keep going, that flame, that we just have to keep going, and we can do it. So that's where the third Reconstruction comes in the Maryland Poor People's Campaign. And now we're going to go on to a call to action. You have mentioned them all tonight, every one of the things that we want to talk about in End to Poverty. Linnell, you pointed out healthcare for all. Thank you. I mean, affordable housing. We've heard many people, Mary, you've talked about it, about just Section 8 housing and what we need to do. We had food security, and Ashal, thank you so much for highlighting that. Philomena, right to education, you spoke so powerfully about your students' needs. Kiana, living wage, jobs and living wage. This is part of our end to poverty resolution. The immigration, Pauline, in your No Human Being Will Ever Be Illegal in your song, and Leah talking about the criminalization of people who are immigrants. Criminal justice reform, Liddell, your Truth to Power campaign. And Mike Hughes, I'd like to say it's justice reform, not just criminal justice, but justice reform for disabled people who have to go into a court to get their rights. We need climate and environmental justice. And Mary, your talk about having to live in unsafe housing, filled with mold, no running water, as some people have mentioned, that's a form of environmental justice. Eileen, affordable transportation, many others talking about we can't get to work. We're not going to let our leaders off the hook. They have got to cover all of these areas of poverty and injustice. They're interlocking, and that's what we're going to go for. So January 17th at 7 p.m., please come back, raise your voices with us during the Maryland General Assembly in 2022. And now we're going to go over to Mike Coleman, from an organizer with the Maryland PPC in Baltimore, who will tell us about a further event that we're going to be sponsoring later in the year.
So I first want to thank everybody for joining us. We have over 100 people on the call right now. You know, we have over a dozen people in the space behind me right now. We're here to represent, we're here to lend our voice and energy to this movement to end poverty, right? We all have a part to play. It's a little better. So I know it's been late. A lot of us have had long days, but we are here. And we're here because we recognize that there's a problem. We recognize that there's something that can be done, and we're here to lend our energies to solve a lot of these issues, these challenges. We just heard of how all these issues we face are all tangled together, right? They're all meshed in between housing and education, environment, and everything, right? It's all tied together. And so I want to invite you guys. Well, first, let me just say this. We're here because we know, but it's not enough to know. We must act, we must stand, we must fight. But even then, it's not enough. It's not enough to stand and fight yourself as an individual. We must also encourage and engage others to engage and participate, right? I just said we had over 100 people on this call. If everybody brought one extra person, that would have been 200 people, right? So I want people to keep that in mind, because as we are living these atrocities, you know, we know that our family is going through the same thing. Talk to your family, talk to your neighbors. Let them know what is going on. Let them know what you're hearing right now. You know, let them know what you felt when you heard it, right? So it is not just an opportunity or a thing for us to do, but it's actually our obligation. If we don't, we fail. We are in this, part of the reason why we are in this fight now is because we didn't come together like we could and should and will. You know, there's been a lot of energy into organizing and putting together things, events like this, to pull people together so that we can hear each other's stories, so that we can relate to each other, right? Beyond relating, is supporting each other, right? We are here, and I consider everybody here, you know, part of my network and part of my village, you know. So I want to invite you guys to participate in the Mass Poor People's Assembly in Moore March on Washington. If you're tired, try saying that 3 times fast. Maybe that'll wake you up a little bit. But that's happening June 18th. And I'm hoping that everyone on this call will try to make this event. As a matter of fact, if you are interested in coming and you're planning on coming, please raise your hand. Nice. Y'all see all those hands right there? So there is people coming from across the country, not just in Baltimore, not just in Maryland, but across the country to this event. So this is an opportunity for us to come together and let our voices be heard. You know, we're not asking, we're not pleading, we are demanding to be heard. You know, I also want to, you know, we have a date, January 4th. We want people to be registered by January 4th. But we don't even have to wait until January 4th, right? We know people, there's a lot of committed leaders on this call. There's a lot of people who may be experiencing this for the first time. I welcome you. And I encourage you to go ahead and sign up tonight. You know, the link is in the chat. We can sign up tonight. We can sign up. Some people may, let's see. Yeah, we still got 99 plus. We're still here. We're still here. But let's not wait until January 4th. Let's go ahead and get registered as soon as possible. You know, let's go ahead and talk to our neighbors, our friends, our families, you know, our students, our co-workers, and let's make this march ours. This is our march. This is our time. Make our voices heard. You know, I'm gonna throw out a number for you guys, 140. This is not 140. It's not 140,000. This is 140 million people living in poverty today in this country. 140 million people in poverty. That's insane to think about, you know, considering this is one of the wealthiest countries on this planet. It's really crazy. But on the 18th of June, we're going to let it be known that we are tired and we're not taking this anymore, right? So we're going to stand up and we're going to encourage and invite our network and our friends to step up as well. All right, I know it's late. I'm not going to hold you guys much longer. I want to thank you. We really appreciate your participation. We value you as a person, and we hope that you're going to be joining us. Do not let anything stop you. For us to be successful, we have to be committed, right? And we have to be supportive of each other. So with that, I'm going to bid everyone a good night. I think we may have a song. Can we get another song? Boy, that song earlier. Really moved me. Pauline does it every time, I tell you. I said, can we get a song? Yeah. Maura, I'm hoping you can close us out with a song. And with that, I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Maura, it's on you. Hey, there you are. Hey.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that powerful call to action as well. This is a song that I learned from Yara Allen, an amazing organizer and national leader of the Poor People's Campaign, an amazing singer and musician. And it's called Somebody's Hurting My Brother. And it was inspired after hearing testimony like tonight from all of us here, where folks came together and talked about coal ash spill from Duke Energy, physically and mentally impacting them and hurting their community. And after hearing them testify, this song was written. And so I want to share it with you all tonight and teach you so we can kind of, you know, learn the song together and bring it with us to our food distributions, our rallies, to June and to the June event coming up. So it goes, somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on, and then you're going to say far too long, And I'm going to say, it's gone on. And you're going to say, far too long. Yes, it's gone on. And then you end it with far too long. And then all together we'll say, and we won't be silent anymore. And we'll do brother and sister and children and elders. All right, and you can clap too. So if you're still with me, we want to end together singing because we are the Poor People's Campaign. All right, so let's clap a little bit. Somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Let's do sister. Somebody's hurting my sister, and it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurting my sister, and it's gone on far too long. Together we won't be silent anymore. Let's do children. Somebody's hurting our children, and it's gone on far too long. Yeah, it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurting our children, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Last one, elders. Somebody's hurting our elders, and it's gone on far too long. Yeah, it's gone on far too long. Hey, it's gone on far too long. Somebody's hurting our elders, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Let's end it all together. And we won't be silent anymore.
Man, that was awesome. That was awesome. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us tonight. I wish you all a good night, and we'll see you guys later.
Okay. Forward together.
Not one step back.
Two more times. Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.